So Julio, you've written a lot about Puerto Rico, and now that Biden's ascended, what's changed? What's the same? What's going on?
So I think the biggest change was the fact that Biden has been able to move more relief aid to Puerto Rico that's been kind of been held since Hurricane Maria. I mean, Donald Trump was notorious for playing Puerto Rico like a puppet or like a punching bag, and that's kind of gone away. But the reality is not much is changing. I mean, you still have the Promesa board, which people tend to forget that Barack Obama signed that. So it's definitely a Biden Obama policy. You still have things like the Jones Act that I don't think are going to be changing. Monopoly on imports to Puerto Rico, and so I think it's business as usual. In Puerto Rico, and colonialism is bipartisan in a lot of ways.
Fair. So how much are we talking about in terms of relief aid? And then this far after the hurricane, like what kind of things would it be put to use for? Like how do you even distribute something like that?
It's housing. It's in the billions. There's still blue tarps in Puerto Rico, and it's 2021. If you think about it, Hurricane Maria will be its 4th-year anniversary in September this year. So there's still a lot of things in terms of economic recovery, disaster relief, infrastructure. A lot of the things that quote unquote President Trump was delivering to Puerto Rico weren't really happening. And I mean, I think the one thing is it's good that you have someone like Biden who's starting to pay attention to Puerto Rico in a lot of ways. But again, I don't see a lot of like bold agenda items coming out of the Biden administration regarding what I think are things that Puerto Ricans are talking about. Canceling the debt, really getting people, jobs, Medicaid, all those things are really important, and things are moving in the right direction. Don't get me started about the status question. I don't think anything's going to be happening in Puerto Rico. We're not going to be talking about statehood in Puerto Rico, at least during the next 4 years.
Well, even as a small measure, do you anticipate Air Force One touching down there anytime soon?
I doubt it. I mean, sadly, unless it's like a natural disaster. I mean, I'm sorry to be cynical, but I don't.
You've been down this road before.
It's not. Yeah, it's not a campaign. I mean, Obama went down there in 2012, I believe, and got a lot of money for his campaign. So unless Biden is already thinking about running in 2024, I don't see him coming down there at all. I don't think he went down there during the primaries. So, I mean, he went to Florida. He went to Central Florida where the votes are. But yeah.
Right. Can you not to change subjects too briskly, but I know your time is. I know we're running out of time here. Can you give us a little preview of Latino Rebels late night?
Oh, should I? No, this actually started because I actually started creating some lives last year during the pandemic, and we pitched it to 150, which is the incubator of Warner Media, and they basically take these story ideas or show ideas and they fund them, and we're going to be doing some digital segments, testing them out in the summer. I don't want to share too much because the best way to describe it is, how do we say it? It's a little daily show, a little Latino Rebels, little.
But
news.
You're not necessarily traveling down a beaten path here. You're kind of creating something new.
Yeah, it's very Latino leaning. It's kind of like we're still figuring it out. We're trying to do some interesting, but it's exciting. We're kind of in this creative phase, and we're really excited that Warner Media is behind this, because the goal of it is to create something that we can share and then pitch inside Warner, and then see if really good things happen. And Warner owns like HBO Max, CNN, TNT, Comedy Central. No, they don't own Comedy Central. Sorry, but they're Warner.
Right?
They're pretty big.
Yeah, that's a big deal. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So, from a career in publishing, why journalism? Like, why pivot to all these news projects. I mean, obviously now you're talking more in terms of like production and things like that, of like a lot of different things. But like I've always thought of you since I've known you as a journalist, like a very, very good, shrewd journalist. So what made you pivot in that direction?
Well, I started as a journalist in college, and then I went into publishing, and then the educational publishing world imploded, and I had to kind of find a mid-career break, find a new job, and look into a new industry. And so one of the things that I was doing on the side was digital media in the aughts, as they say. And I was an early Facebook adopter, early Twitter adopter, and I kind of realized that the power of social and digital in journalism was kind of the future. So I got to play in the space before a lot of other people were, and I was able to bring journalism into it. And that led to the creation of Latino Rebels. That led to literally auditioning for Al Jazeera America for the stream, and as a digital producer, and that kind of led to where I am at Futuro. So, I mean, it's been a ride. I'm enjoying it.
Well, looking back on this entrepreneurial rise through the industry, what would you say is, for you anyway, the story, the best story, the highlight? Like if you had to choose one, what was your baby?
Oh, that's a really good question. I do think like the time of the early immigrant rights movements, dreamers of 2011, 2012, sort of the Dream 9, the Dream 16, like the Dream 30, sort of all these young activists challenging a Democratic administration after the Dream Act didn't pass in a democratically controlled Congress. There was a lot of excitement and a lot of uncertainty about what it is. There was a real true sense of activism on the ground, a lot of energy. I was really, really fortunate to be able to cover that and to make connections with people, because a lot of these young dreamers are now are sort of have moved into the next phase of their political lives. I'm kind of a little bit proud of the fact that it was a small group of journalists that were covering this back in the day, and now it feels like this is like mainstream news, right? And
right. Well, follow up then. What would you say to the young journalists who are starting to cover it now, having gone down the path that you've gone down as a pioneer in their beat?
I say stay close to the community. It's clear that if you become a stenographer for government agencies, you're not really a journalist. I know that sounds really harsh, but there's a history of immigration agencies who use words to kind of not tell you the truth when the truth is right in front of you. And I think the real stories are out in the detention centers, in the quote unquote family camps. I think there's so many voices out there that deserve to be heard. And it's too easy to just hear let's hear what ICE has to say.
Right.
Well, ICE is not trying to make, ICE doesn't want to make journalists look good. They don't make your job easy.
Looking at you, Brian Cox, ICE spokesman, longtime ICE spokesman and nemesis of Pablo. But let me ask you this. Speaking of voices that need to be heard, who are the underrated news workers today? Like this week, this month, like right now, who are the people who are like, we would say, the most underrated in your field?
Yeah, Tina Vasquez from Prism jumps to the top journalist. Jumps to the top of the heap. She is someone that I have infinite respect and just deeply admire her commitment to the craft and what it is to be a journalist. And her ethics are just ridiculously strong. She provides a master class in journalism just on her Twitter feed. So any young journalist or anyone who wants to know what it is to really be a journalist, you should be following Tina right now. So after that, I mean, I feel like there's so many younger people that I've got to know that I really have just enjoyed seeing them grow. I mean, I think of Bianca Padro Ocasio, who's a fellow Puerto Rican journalist out of the Miami Herald, who I've known since she was at Politico, and is doing really amazing work out of Florida. And I really love like following journalists who are covering local beats. So I get to know a little bit about, parts of the country that I don't have a chance to be in. So Bianca comes to mind. And also there's a really fantastic new outlet called Trucha out of the Rio Grande Valley, the RGV. It's literally like a collective of young voices that are covering the movement out of the Rio Grande Valley, really community driven, amazing writers. They just launched it like 2 months ago, and they're doing some really interesting work that, remind me of the early days of Latino Rebels, and I'm really excited to watch them grow.
Amazing. Those were great early days of Latino Rebels. We're going to look up Trucha and hopefully have somebody from Trucha on Meet La Prensa.